All right, I think our audio is working. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Q&A Corner presented by High Tech U. My name is Andrew, and I am so excited to be back again with you today with a very, very special guest, a good friend and colleague who I'm going to let himself introduce himself in just a minute, but I'm so thrilled that you have made the journey here to Twitch, or if you're catching this on YouTube, for Q&A Corner today. So yeah, welcome, and we're gonna get started. And to do that, I'm gonna bring us over and introduce our guest for today, who I think should be unmuted now, John Fagan. How's it going, John?
Very well, Andrew. Hi, how are you doing?
I am doing very well, although I'm realizing that my camera was in the exact wrong... There we go. Now I'm feeling a little bit better, and I can stare at the right place while I'm talking. How is your day going so far? Has it been a busy one getting prepped for this interview, like for all of the questions that are coming your way?
Absolutely. I saw your piece on LinkedIn, so I hope there's some good questions. Had a pretty busy morning. Lots of UVic students looking for work that I was working with.
There you go. So for those of you who have no idea where you are right now, you have just happened on to this thing. You are almost at UVic today, because not only is High Tech U a part of the University of Victoria, but our guest John is a career educator here at the University of Victoria. And despite COVID-19, we are actually literally about 2 floors away from each other, I think. But here today, we're showcasing all of the wonder of the University of Victoria from the comfort of our separate offices. So if you haven't been on Q&A Corner before, if you did just happen upon us because you got a notification about a really awesome talk show and you were like, I want to talk to a career educator, this is a really open forum for you to have a conversation with our experts. Q&A Corners are interactive industry interviews, and you are the interactive part of these industry interviews. So as we're going through, we've got our chat wide open for you. If you are logged into Twitch, if you create an account on there, you can send questions through to John. You can also go to the High Tech U website and submit questions by email as we're going through this. You can also just shout your questions from the top of your lungs and maybe make your neighbors a little bit upset, but John's got really good hearing, so he might be able to catch it and we might be able to figure it out. So yeah, as we're going through, feel free to throw your questions in the chat and I'll make sure that John can see those. But otherwise, maybe our kind of standard fare for these, John, is just to say, tell us a little bit about yourself and what has brought you to Q&A Corner.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, and hi to everybody out there. Nice to be on here. And, I've been connected with High Tech U since the beginning. A lot of my students, in fact, one of the students I was working with today was working with High Tech U just recently. And so my background, you'll probably hear a bit of an accent, originally from South Africa, but been in Canada for 25 years and a bit more now. So very happy to be here. Been at UVic as a career educator in the Faculty of Engineering. So with engineering students and computer science students, since 2008, so coming up for 13th year that I'm starting. I've worked with many thousand, I was just trying to count up, it's somewhere between 8 and 10,000 UVic students and grads. And this has been really rewarding work for me, helping people plan their careers, look at their options, skill themselves up, and then head out there and leverage that into career success. I love connecting with my alum who have taken their education and gone ahead and make something of their life. So, Andrew, you had asked me to chat with you today about how teens that are coming to school can look at this and help to perhaps get a head start on their success.
There we go. Now I'm unmuted. Absolutely. And I guess for all of those people that are out there that are watching this stream today, that are in high school and they're like, I don't need a career educator. I've got a career counselor at my high school. John is like that career counselor, career educator, and then just throw thousands and thousands of more students and that direct connection to the real world and working with students. And when he says the thousands of students, that's literally thousands of students that John has seen over the years that he's been able to engage in the career education journey, not just finding a job, but finding their career. So, John, I'm so excited to have you on the stream today. It's going to be a really great hour or so that we're working together. I know you're jumping into another thing that you're actually playing host shortly after this. So I guess I kind of want to jump in with a question that comes through all the time. It's one that we had submitted for today, and that piece is I'm looking for a career as a computer scientist. I love programming, but I know it's not enough. So what is it that I need to do in order to get where I want to be working as a computer scientist in industry? What are those missing pieces that I don't have?
Excellent question, Andrew. And yeah, so, for me, I try and answer these type of questions coming from the knowledge base of those thousands of computer science students I've worked with here at UVic. I think one of the key pieces we want to think about, Andrew, is not just becoming a computer scientist, but what type of computer scientist. We don't see many jobs out there posted as computer scientist wanted. It's usually full stack developer, front end, back end, data analyst, cybersecurity specialist, depends on where you're going. But yeah, starting with some basic understanding of object-oriented programming and getting some basic skills in foundational languages like Java, C, even Python these days is really important to get you going. But that's also not enough. That's the skill side of it. The other part of this is looking at the market. So if you're here in Victoria, connecting with Viatech, getting involved with programs like High-Tech U and other things, so starting to look ahead before you're actually over in that next section. So if you're at high school thinking about university, great, think about university, but also think about the work that you're going to do after university. So what are the skills you want to gather at university? I very commonly, Andrew, say to my students, it's not about the degree. It's about the skills and knowledge that you gain through that degree that will help you to bring value into your life in the future.
Yeah, so I think that's a big piece, and that was a second question that I was going to sort of follow up with, but you've segued very nicely. We didn't plan this at all, folks. This was not planned, no preparation. But that question was specifically around, like, is there value in, and I mean, obviously, so we're working at a university, we're big fans of a university education, but now in 2021, you can get a job without a university education. You can go to college for 3 years, you can do a boot camp program, you can just be self-taught and showcase that you can make it. So really, in your experience, what is the big value on that career journey of that sort of 4-year, 5-year undergraduate degree?
Yeah, so I think you make a great point, Andrew, that, it's not only you've got to go to university or you've got to go to college. If you've got some great coding skills and have some ability, you could probably get work without going to university or college. What you're looking at is perhaps taking those skills to the next level. What I mean by that is using the university experience, in other words, all the assignments and projects and things that you're doing, yes, for a grade, but also to develop those skills so that you can take it to the next level and then become what I usually say, more fluent. So any language we speak, the more fluency you've got, the more you can achieve, then the more work you can do. A good analogy for folks in high school would be if you're working with shapes. I come from a background where I did work in mechanical construction down in Southern Africa, and we used a lot of geometry in the work that we did because we were building tanks and conveyors and all sorts of things. So we had to know our geometry really well. My mechanical engineers, in order to work with dynamics and moving bodies, they have to know their calculus really well and be fluent at it. So taking whichever language you're learning, I mean, if you're a database person doing SQL, MySQL, making sure your fluency level is aligned with where you're headed as far as your career. I think that's the big piece. So sometimes you could have a look out of high school and go, is this enough? Can I do the work that needs doing? I've seen folks come out of high school and go to Lighthouse Labs or one of these sort of places, do a boot camp, and then get working as a programmer pretty quickly. To take that up and a notch, you want to get into a college or a university program where you can practice those skills and work with other people to compare your skills to them, and also work with professionals that have the ability to teach you a next level of whatever it is that you're working in.
Every single time I'm like, I'm making it quiet, ensuring that you're the only one that can be heard, not my clicking on my keyboard, and then I'm forgetting. But it's at least you're the one that's not muted. So so thanks. That's great, John. I super appreciate that. And I'm curious if you're willing to share, because you had an interesting kind of journey into post-secondary, like from where most people, like traditionally right now, like a lot of the people that are going to be watching this stream are kind of looking at that traditional route of, I'm going to graduate from high school, I'm going to either go to college or college and university, I'm going to go get a job. So I don't know if you're willing, just so everybody on the stream knows, John and I are friends. We have been for a while, and one of the things that that John has had conversation about is he should write a book about his life. And so this is your little taste of the John Fagan autobiography, I'm hoping.
Yeah, well, let me give you a bit of a timeline, and it'll perhaps let's use this not so much to focus on John Fagan, but to also look at some of the lessons that come out of that I've learned along the way. So, when I came out of high school, I did 2 years in the military. I ended up a platoon sergeant in the infantry. Taught me a lot of leadership. It was pretty tough at times being in the infantry down in Southern Africa. But coming out of that, I went into college and did probably the equivalent of what we call a mechanical technologist, the kind of diploma that Camosun has, or BCIT. What that did was give me enough mechanical knowledge to work with engineers and to work with project managers. So what we're talking about is I also did a project management diploma and worked as a mechanical construction project manager for a number of years in many countries around Southern Africa, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Zambia, also Mauritius over in the Indian Ocean. In 1995, my wife and I immigrated to Canada. We thought we'd try and find somewhere in North America where we could start up a new life. And we arrived here, a backpack each and not too much cash in our pocket. And it was a matter of finding work. And of course, I didn't find too much in Victoria. I ended up spending 4 or 5 years in Calgary, which was much more helpful in the industrial side. But I found that because I didn't have a degree, Andrew, I kept bumping up against that ceiling that I could do the work. I was managing a factory up in Calgary as a production manager, but I was the factory foreman, not the production manager per se, because I didn't have a degree. So decided to come back to school, and instead of doing further engineering work, came to UVic in 2002 and did a honors degree in philosophy, also with a minor in psychology, with a view to working in the counseling field like I do now. But I ended up looking at more working in career counseling, not so much the psychological personal counseling side of things. But along the way, I've sold machinery. I've done a number of different things. I think the moral of the story here, Andrew, is don't be afraid to try something. Try it out. If you like it, you can make a path out of it. If you don't, you learn something and take another path. But action always better than inaction.
Yeah, and I think that's something to say. I think all of us, in addition to sort of I think there's a lot of conversation about imposter syndrome, but there's not a lot of conversation around just feeling like you're wasting your time in a job or in something that you're doing, and feeling like, oh, this isn't helping me, this isn't where I want to be. And I think everybody will have those jobs, everybody will have those roles where they don't feel that, but it's all part of that journey that is going to help you recognize things that you need to do in order to get to the place that you ultimately want to end up.
Yeah, sometimes, it's more important to know what you don't want to do than what you do. So, back in philosophy, we had this thing we called via negativa. So the way of the negative, in other words, eliminate all the stuff you don't want. And quite often you're left with the things that you do want.
Yeah, and I had an interesting so I had this experience. So we recently hired, as you know, 6 interns that worked for High Tech U as high school software development interns, which was a super cool experience. And I had one of them that once we got through the first half, the project switched, and they're sort of not attitude, like they were still doing a really good job, but you could tell that something was up. And I remember sitting down with this intern and saying, listen, what's going on? And it was just like, I've identified that like I'm really not a big fan of this thing. It really sucks the life out of me. And I said, wow, that's amazing. I mean, it's not amazing, but it was great because in grade 12, before going into university and starting to build skills and listening to what everybody says about, oh, this skill is important or that skill is important, he knows like that's not something that I want to do. And now he can use that as a tool to avoid it moving forward, right?
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you raised the imposter syndrome thing. I mean, we see that quite often. It's a very common thing that we deal with when people have finished their undergrad, let's say in computer science, and then go on and look at doing a master's. They sometimes feel like, oh, someone's going to catch me. I don't know as much as I'm pretending to know, and these sort of things. To be honest, even professors I know have dealt with imposter syndrome. It's really a contextual thing. So, by being a little more sure and speaking to people and connecting with mentors and even doing informational interviews where you can find out more about a program, don't be afraid to go and speak to people. I think this is, technically minded folks that are comfortable with numbers more than they are with words, tend to not be the kind that will go and chat up a professor or go and chat up a professional. There are, of course, structured things that if you Google informational interviews, you'll find all sorts about it. But setting up a meeting like that in order to talk to people in the same way as this, just on a discovery basis, where there's no real ask. You're not asking them for anything tangible except for advice. And I promise you, I mean, to the teenagers out there, old people love giving advice. I'm sure you've realized that by now, right? So yeah, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to engage with them. The other one that always comes up, Andrew, is getting timely help and advice. Don't leave it until it's too late. When you go and ask someone, they say, hey, do this, and you should have done it 6 months ago. If you have a question, get in touch with people. Ask people these sort of things. On this note, I did want to extend an invite to anybody that's interested in studying engineering and computer science at UVic. I do, and I won't say this too many times because I don't want to be inundated, but I do see prospective students. So I do see high school students who are really interested in coming to UVic on an appointment, and they can always email me. I think Andrew has my email that he could share with you folks a little later.
I do, yeah. So I'll throw it in the chat right now. And then if you want to get in touch with John, you can reach out there. So that chat's in there. And while I'm in the chat, we've got a question from the chat for you that is very specific to soft skills. So the question is, what soft skills should somebody that's interested in a career in the tech sector be really focused on developing?
Yeah, so really good question. And I think soft skills, or I like to call them professional skills because soft has sort of, this connotation. I think what we want to look at is what's going to serve you to take your technical knowledge and ability and optimize it out there in the workplace. So first and foremost, I see my early students in first and second year of undergrads learning good time management skills. So I think that the primary foundational soft skill is good time management. So getting to things on time, being prepared, getting assignments in on time, getting applications in on time, getting to interviews on time. Another one to that, of course, would be communication. So I mean, verbal communication, being able to talk, being able to at least articulate your ideas in plain language. But also written communication, decent grammar and spelling. Nowadays, we've got no excuses with spell check and so forth. So basic foundational time management, communication, these sort of things, personal management. We're starting to get into an age where things like emotional intelligence and the ability to deal with change, adaptability, that sort of thing. So there are more nuanced soft skills or professional skills that we would look at perhaps once you're in the workplace. But those foundational communication, teamwork, and time management, I would say, are the three big ones to start with.
Over. That's awesome. Yeah, and it's funny, this idea, because it's still out there, soft skills are the hardest skills to learn. Like hard skills, technical skills, we've been working for so long as sort of in the world in which we live to teach people those kind of very tactile, tactical skills. But those professional skills are hard to learn and hard to figure out.
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. Another thing I do here at UVic, because like Andrew, I wear many hats and do a number of different jobs. I work in a program called MTIS, which is a Masters in Telecommunication and Information Security. I've been teaching them professional skills and ethics and these pieces, probably for, I think we're into our 7th year now. And one of the things, of course, we say what Andrew just said, soft skills are hard. But one of the things with soft skills is that it's not enough to learn about it and get the understanding of it. You actually have to practice. You actually have to do this kind of thing. So with these students, that's a 1-year master's degree. What we do is we get them into a team of 2 people in the first semester. In the second semester, a team of 4 people. In the third semester, a team of 6 or 7 or 8. So getting them to work in increasingly larger teams. We get them to do basic presentations, little 1-minute talks in the first semester. That gets bigger where they're doing 15, 20, half an hour talks as they go along. And these are technical talks where they're talking about penetration testing or man-in-the-middle attacks or DDoS attacks, any of these kind of things.
Yeah, sorry. As you're giving such like great examples, I'm looking. There's a report that was released in 2020, which may not have had a lot of great things that came out of it, but there was one. Have you seen the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report?
Absolutely. Yep.
So I'm going to pull it up over here. So can you like maybe explain if you're up to it? Can you like explain kind of what this is and how it ties into what we're talking about?
Yeah, let me have a look. I'll get it up on my screen as well here. So there are similar ones in Canada, like I think Royal Bank has the Future of Work and these kind of things too. So just looking at, I think part of it is looking at how things have shifted and changed, Andrew. Can you throw me the hyperlink for that particular one? So
totally.
I can grab the same page as you.
So let me pull it up over here. See, folks, if you're ever doing a thing like this, always send your guests copies of the things that you're going to ask them about on the live stream. While John's pulling that up, so what's interesting about this, it's linked on the High Tech U website, but what's great about this is it goes through and talks about like emerging and redundant job roles. It talks about emerging skills and like top emerging skills that are listed on all of these things. Sure, technology use is there, but critical thinking and analysis, active learning, leadership and analytical thinking, reasoning, service orientation, resilience and stress tolerance, like alongside all of these amazing technology pieces of like cloud computing and IoT and 3D printing and all the rest of it, is this huge conversation on like the need to reskill, but it's reskilling based on soft skills. It's reskilling based in a very, very different type of skill.
Absolutely, Andrew. And I think, this is where my background in philosophy has allowed me to contribute and help these folks in the cybersecurity and data science worlds, because one of the fundamental foundational skills we're thinking of is essentially critical thinking. Not just accepting whatever information's coming into you, but thinking critically about it and how that feeds, of course, into problem solving and even the self-management piece, right? So even looking at how you're managing your career and how you're interacting, sometimes you really want to say something, but it actually makes more sense to keep quiet and not in that instance. So that's what I mean by self-management. But those core skills like teamwork, being able to communicate and collaborate with other people, the critical thinking piece, also even creativity, so I know we were talking recently about the 7 C's that 21st century education refers to, and these are some of those. The physical abilities have sort of slipped down a little bit, but these, I would call them reasoning abilities and cognitive abilities. So we've expanded out to not just looking at someone's IQ to understand where they're coming from, but looking at things like EQ, emotional intelligence, AQ, adaptability, as well as others. We even talking about CQ now, which is cultural intelligence as well. So the world has changed, so there's a lot of Qs, a lot of quotients.
I didn't realize that CQ was a thing. I'd never heard of that. See, things you learn on Q&A Corner.
Absolutely. No, so I'm glad you brought that up, and I'd suggest sharing that link with the participants here for the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs, because it does paint a pretty good picture. A Canadian organization doing a lot of work on this is, of course, Royal Bank Canada, and their Future Work program. So certainly look up Royal Bank Future Work as well. They're actually funding a lot of programs to help students get from school to work, not just from university, but also from high schools.
Yeah, and I've got so they've got like this awesome future launch program, and I think it's within this page. I'm sure there's something that's in there. But yeah, they're funding tons of stuff. There's workshops, like toolboxes. Yeah, they've got so many really cool things. And it's funny. So I'm talking about this idea of reskilling. I remember years ago what RBC funded was after school programs. And after school programs are like really closely linked with student success. And they pulled that funding a few years ago, and it was a couple of years before they actually got into a place where they said, okay, we're going to fund another youth thing, but it has a different focus. But even they realized, like, we've been funding the same thing for 20 years. It's time to change, and we can still fund those things. But now we've taken the time to say, okay, we're going to fund these things, and then we're going to make sure they focus on these future soft professional skills, because that's what needs to be done if we're going to prepare students for the future. I mean, it's great. I think there's still huge importance for those programs, but when you see banks doing these things, I think, right, like that, if you look at both of those documents, they're both economic organizations, and we live in a society where the economy drives change. So I think it's a really telling sign that these things are happening now.
Absolutely. I mean, a great example of that in the tech world, if any of our audience here are into blockchain technology, buying themselves Bitcoin and that sort of thing, the blockchain advancements here in Canada are pretty much solidly in the banking sector, whether it's RBC, TD, any of them. They all tend to have blockchain software units at this point and are working pretty hard to get caught up on the blockchain side of things.
Yeah, so it's interesting you bring up blockchain, because obviously for folks that are in high school, High Tech U's done a lot of work with quantum computing. That's been a big thing for us. But there's also things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, computer vision, like all of these kind of terms that are used a lot in the industry. As a career educator, how important do you think it is for students to understand all of those sort of really up and coming technologies? Like, is that where they should be focusing their time, or should they be focusing it on something that maybe is a little bit more relatable to them?
I think that's a great question, because what that points at here, Andrew, is two different layers. So I think at a sort of broader level, understanding the basics of what blockchain is, that it's a distributed ledger system and how it works. You don't have to get into being able to use it yet. So, thinking about how you're building things from the ground up. When you started with, grade school mathematics, they were teaching you foundationals. As you got further on, you started to get into the calculus and to the more challenging mathematics. The same thing seems to happen with most knowledge areas around the tech sector, is that you need to learn the foundationals so that you can speak the language. Once you've got that, then you can start to specialize into these different areas. So if you do go out and have a look at getting into blockchain or understanding data science, or looking at cybersecurity and white hat hacking or whatever it is you're looking at, get a basic foundation. Don't try and go straight down that rabbit hole too early in your career, because I have found so many folks come into university even, and during first and second year, there's a lot of exploratory stuff going on. They really thought they liked a certain thing when they were at high school, but when they started getting into it to a bit more of a higher level, they realized, oh, there's actually something else that they liked more. So they end up then shifting. So what I'm talking about is someone who thought they were going to be a software developer, got all their coding skills really strong, and that was great, a great foundation, but realized that they were a very analytic person and still liked the high-end mathematics. Well, then they jump from that software area perhaps into something like cryptography and in the cybersecurity space, or even data analytics, where you need a stronger sense of statistics and mathematics. So learn the basics of those broad areas and understand what they are. But, don't be specializing until you've built a foundation of knowledge that you can make at least an informed choice about which road you're going to take in that specialization.
Totally. So it's interesting I asked that because High Tech U obviously focused on youth and youth engagement. And in our kind of lifetime, there's been lots of these programs that have come out, and one of them is called the Knowledge Society. Have you heard of this organization?
I have. Now, I only seen them on the World Economic Forum as well, but yeah, some interesting work that they're doing. I haven't looked into them in depth, Andrew.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So they're and I think it speaks to two sides. One of them of like they're leaning into this, like, let's talk about the most innovative technologies that are out there, and literally what they do is they take students in. It's a 10-month program. They're specifically focused on those World Economic Forum pieces, but instead of focusing on the technical sort of basic skills, they go to kind of the other way, and they say, here is a specific area that we want you to go and do some research on and become an expert on this. And then they're just these expert connectors that will connect these folks with literally anybody on the face of the earth. Like they've done work with like every major player that's out there. The two guys that founded this are tech startup like entrepreneurs who went and did that, and then they kind of refounded this. I mean, it's an interesting model though, because in order to get all of that knowledge, it's an expensive program. So I think it's about $10,000 to go through that program for a year. So it's very pricey, but it sort of takes the opposite side to, I guess, a lot of the traditional knowledge. And it's getting a lot of like interest, but I guess I sometimes worry. I think it's a great program, but I sometimes worry, like, are we setting these students up for success that they're 18 and they become experts in the field of quantum computing or AI, and then they hit 22 and they spent all this time focused on it and they're not really even interested in it anymore, if that's really the way to go?
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point, and it sort of harps back to my discussion earlier about laying foundations and then building on those, Andrew. That ability to pivot. First of all, some of the stats I look at say the baby boomer worker would have had 5 to 7 jobs in their life. The millennial or Gen Y worker is going to probably have 15 to 20 or even more, because we're talking the gig economy and part-time jobs, contract work, this sort of thing. So as much as these programs are great, and I think they hold a lot of potential, again, backing up into the basics. So, for example, developing some good, strong study skills. For example, at high school, some of our folks that come into university tell me, man, high school was way too easy. I got bored to tears. If you're bored at high school, find other things to keep your brain busy. Don't let your brain get comfortable being bored. It's really not going to help you to develop those good habits. So those really strong habits of curiosity and tenacity, and being able to follow through with things, good studying skills, good time management skills, things like, for example, getting to know what your options are and keeping even a journal or a OneNote or whatever it is you use to maintain things. And that will help you to start seeking out mentors early. So, here at UVic, through High Tech U, through Makerspace out at the Tech Park, through many different avenues, high school students can go and look for mentors and speak to people that have actually done this kind of thing and get the advice directly from those folks. We have the old saying, from the horse's mouth, all right? Find out from people that have done it. There's a lot of talkers out there. Speak to the doers rather than the talkers. I think that's a big piece. It also means being active, not passive. So I always say that it's super important to take responsibility for your career way early. So in high school, decide, I'm going to choose that. But if you choose one path, make sure you've got a plan B and a plan C, and sometimes a D and E as well, because you're going to do a bunch of things. Andrew, something I've seen that I think is so relevant and worth mentioning here is that, let's say probably pre-2010, so 2008 and earlier, it was all about specialization. So we had the software guys, we had the IT guys, whereas now things have integrated. So it used to be more about divergence. We're talking convergence now. So the generalist that can do many different things is starting to be seen as a lot more valuable than that specialist that's only doing one particular thing. So, software as a service now, data scientists need to be able to code. They don't need just a statistics and math degree. They also need some programming skills. So think about where is the intersection between these different areas of skill that you have, because those are the sweet spots. Those are the areas that'll help you to find industries where you would have some value and where you'd be able to show some value.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that piece is so important, and it's not. And I love what you said about choose a career and have different options, but make a decision, because, like you said before, a decision is better than no decision. Doing something will move you in the right direction, even if you discover that it's not something that you're interested in. It's going to help you. So then maybe that drives into a question there as well. So and I think I'll maybe take two routes here. So let's say, and I'm sure you probably have students that come through your office and they are sort of upper year. They've gotten 3 years through their degree and they're like, I'm done with this. I'm sick of it. I don't want to be here anymore. I hate this. What kind of advice would you give for a student who's maybe even getting there in high school? They're in grade 11. They're either really smart or they just don't enjoy school, and it's just not doing it for them anymore. Like, what's kind of the advice that you give to those students?
Yeah, it's interesting. The type A personalities that work very hard to get somewhere can sometimes get burned out with that and get sick and tired of what they're working on. I mean, it doesn't hurt if you can fit it in to take that gap year, but take the gap year and do something meaningful, of course. I think, just to back that up to your initial question, Andrew, and look at the folks I work with, I often get, end of first year students going, this university thing's not what I thought it was going to be. I don't know what I want to do now. So if folks are dropping out of the computer science program or the engineering program because it doesn't work for them, they often get channeled back to talk to me before they head out of UVic. And many folks will just back the truck up a bit and take a different approach. So a young engineer who starts at UVic and finds the work just too theoretical for them, she might just leave here and go to Camosun and do a technologist diploma that will get her working and get her out into the workplace, earning money and learning in the applied world, with the option that down the road she could come back and finish an engineering degree. So, don't try and get everything done at once. We always say to folks, don't try and get the corner office on your first day of work, right? Don't try and get everything done at once. If it's not working for you, find a way that does. I think the key piece here, Andrew, is for people to get a sense of what their learning style is. Some people are more hands-on and then the theory comes afterwards. Others are more theoretical and they level out once they get into the hands-on side. So if you're more of a hands-on person, don't try and force yourself into the theoretical mold. Do the hands-on work. And once you have, and I say this from experience because coming to university in my 30s to do a philosophy degree, I had a whole life's worth of experiences that I could relate to on the concepts I was learning. So I could say, oh, that makes sense, because that was like what happened to me 5 years ago. And I could relate it to issues in my life. We use an interesting acronym for education these days. It's ICE, ICE. And what that stands for is ideas, connections, and extensions. It's a nice, simple way to think about what are the new ideas that are coming in, what are you hearing, what are you learning, and how are you integrating those ideas into your existing web of knowledge. So those are the connections you're making. If you can take the new ideas and integrate them into your existing web of knowledge, you're so much better equipped for extending them out into new applications. So always bring along your past knowledge, add the new knowledge to it, and look at what you got now. Where is the intersection between these new things and the things you were pretty good at before?
Awesome. Thanks, John. So if you're just tuning in to our stream, welcome to all of our new viewers. If you're watching this on YouTube, which many of you will, welcome to the now recorded stream. Welcome to the past. We're here with John Fagan, career educator extraordinaire at the University of Victoria in the Faculty of Engineering and Computer Science. We're talking all things career education, soft skills, university university and everything, but these are interactive industry interviews. So as we're going through, we're waiting for your questions. Feel free to send them through to us in chat. Feel free to use telepathy to try and send them to us. Use whatever carrier pigeon, whatever method works for you. We are waiting for your questions, and we've got about 20 minutes left, so not a huge amount of time. So if you've got those burning questions that you're sitting on, make sure to send them in. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you say, oh, I wish that I could connect with John, a career educator who has worked with thousands of engineering and computer science undergraduate and graduate students, so he can help me. Not only will you be able to reach out to John at the link that's going to be below in the description, but also you can put questions in there. I will make sure that John gets those questions, that they come through to him, and he'll be able to answer them for you a little bit later on. So just throw your questions in the chat, and we're just going to kind of keep having a conversation. Okay, so I want to now go to something. This is a personal problem for me, and I'm curious. This is like it's a little bit of a counseling session. I'm finding these live streams tend to be more valuable for me than they are for anybody else. So what about those folks that are out there? Because folks that are involved in high tech U tend to be those super like type A personalities that are looking to get into the industry. They're looking to get a head start. But so often when you're in a job and you see other things, I mean, we live in a social media era where everybody shows the greatest, the best things, and if it looks shiny, then we think that it's beautiful. And so everybody's always looking. They want to be the next Elon Musk, or they want to be the next, they want to create the next multi-billion-dollar company or idea. And that's all that they're willing to do. Is it has to be a part of that journey. What's your advice to those people about like, whether it's realistic, whether it's the right way to do things? I'm just curious what your advice would be for them.
Yeah, very good question. I think to flip back to some of the things we spoke about before, Andrew, is that I think that that combination of being good at your technical work, so knowing your math and finding the answers you need to in your technical work, writing clean code, writing algorithms that work, but also realizing that the certainty that you find in your technical work is not going to be found in your human interactions. So, the biggest challenge I see with young engineers, computer scientists, is that they're very much into certainty and getting the right answers because they're mathematically oriented folks. But when they start interacting with the professional world and speaking to employers and these sort of things, they try and look for these definitive answers. I want to know yes or no, is this going to work? To be quite frank, there's no real definitive answer as to whether you will be a success in a job or not. Most companies are really doing their best to find what we call a heuristic, to look at what you're doing and say, okay, they've got these skills, this is the job, it looks like that personality will fit the team, this could work. So I think one of the things to be careful of is that when you're a confident person who is also a smart person, you can easily be misconstrued as being arrogant. So be confident, but don't be arrogant. And also don't take rejection personally. So if someone sloughs you off and says, I'm not interested, oh, well, they're busy. Don't think it's anything to do with you. Regroup, try it with someone else. If it happens a number of times, well, then you maybe want to have a chat with someone about your communication skills and look at how you're, approaching these folks. But, ultimately, it's about being able to communicate with others in a way that shows that you respect them as well.
Absolutely.
I guess the other piece to that, and we could do it now, we could look at another question if you have anything, but is this idea of always be building a professional network, always be building connections. I have some colleagues who say, oh no, first year is too young to have a LinkedIn profile. No, get a LinkedIn profile in high school and start building connections, because building connections is a long, slow process. Think about how long it took you to get those 500 people you connected with on Facebook. It wasn't overnight. It was as you got to know people, you connected with them on that platform. LinkedIn, of course, is more for the professional side of things. Start to connect with people on LinkedIn, even in high school. Build your network. I always say, you and your skills and the job out here, what connects those two is your professional network. If you know enough people, finding a job gets easier and easier. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, and you hear it's funny. So speaking of like that LinkedIn piece, I often see people that their LinkedIn profile will change from one day to the next, and you reach out to and it says they've got another job, and you say, well, how did you get that job? Like, I didn't know that they were advertising that job, and it's like, oh well, I just put out into my professional network that I was looking for something new, and somebody was looking for a person. I don't think people realize hiring somebody is hard. It's time consuming. It's difficult. You got to create the job posting. You got to post it. You got to interview. You got to train somebody.
Risky.
It's risky too, right? Because you're spent. What's the? I saw somewhere like the average employee onboarding, like to recruit somebody, even for like a lower level, is like $25,000.
Yep.
And then
that's more at the higher level, but yeah, probably $5,000 or $6,000 even for your average, menial job out there too. It costs money. Andrew, the other thing I wanted to touch on, just to further to the professional network, I think the thing to understand is that people who have witnessed your growth, so mentors or people along the way, high school folks or friends of your parents or parents of your friends, have witnessed your growth. And if they have, they are more likely to have faith in your abilities. That means to hire you. So always a good idea to circle back once you've developed and grown. So let's say you had a great mentor that was an uncle or a friend of a friend that helped you in high school. Don't just ditch them when you get into university and think, oh, well, I'm going to go for bigger fish now. Remember to circle back to those folks and tell them what you've achieved, because they have a network as well. And that's the second and third and fourth levels of your network. And they will really be happy to think they gave you some advice, you listened to them, you went out there and did what they said you should do, and you've actually accomplished. They'll actually be proud of you. Of course, they're going to help you to find work. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that network piece is so important. I've yet, there's very few jobs. I think the one job where I'm not still connected with my past employer is I worked as a telemarketing salesman selling meat in freezers full of meat for a while, and I lasted a day, so I decided that wasn't a good network building piece. But I still like my earliest employers. I have a coffee call with folks back in Ontario once a year just to say, hey, how's it going? What are you up to? Just because you never know, like I might end up back there and needing something. So if I can be able to reach out, I mean, it's also just to stay connected, but it's definitely, there's a professional career related piece to that of just, and it's hard work to keep your network fresh, and also to not just make it as though you're doing it for your own ulterior motives, right?
So unless you have a question there, I could give you an idea about how you keep that network fresh. One of the things I find works for myself, but also for many of the students I work with, is simply curating your material and content on your social media. So if you share articles that you've found or pieces that you've seen on websites that are really cool in an area that you're interested in, whether it's gaming, whether it's software development, whether it's data science, cybersecurity, IT, or mechanical, civil, electrical engineering as well. Start to share those things on LinkedIn or on social media platforms. So you start to actually get a reputation. And if you look back at your history, you'll see what you've curated and what you've shared. And it'll give a sense to people of the kind of things you're reading and the kind of things you're interested in. So before they even look at your resume, they got a good idea that, oh, look, she's been sharing all of these pieces, from that specific technology, whether it's software development, these sort of things. So if you're on GitHub, get connected with other people on GitHub. Make sure that you're sharing, you're collaborating, and that people know who you are. Get your name out there. Because that's your brand, right? So you want to get moving with building that network, even at high school. It really you can't really start young enough these days. Quite often folks you knew from high school are 5 years from now going to be the people hiring you, or you're going to be looking at hiring them. So that's your foundational network, or what we often call your sphere of influence.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I agree. I had an experience. This must have been 3 or 4 years ago, where I went to an event, and this is for anybody that's watching the stream right now who's saying, "Oh, this is great advice, but it's not for me. These old folks don't know what they're talking about. I'm hip. I'm cool. I know my things. I've got a TikTok account. Like I've got 100,000 views on everything." Take this advice for these professional pieces. I remember 3 years ago, I was somewhere and somebody said, "Listen, as if you work for us, you're gonna need to have like a really active professional Twitter profile." And I was like, "A Twitter profile? Are you kidding me? Twitter is nothing. Twitter is like this social media thing where some folks go on." And now 3 years later, I wish that I'd started 3 years ago, because the tech industry, the education sector, which is the cross section here, it's their main platform of communication. But especially for the tech industry, LinkedIn is growing and booming right now as like the go-to place for tech, just because I know people that I've talked to who literally have gotten job offers from recruiters on LinkedIn just because they have an active profile on there.
Yeah, I think, even a good piece of advice, Andrew, because to the younger folks coming out of school now, keep your eye out, because social media is busy becoming more sort of multi-channeled. We had our few channels for the last 10, 15 years. I'm even seeing, so for example, I work with electrical engineers and computer engineers, and the IEEE is an institute that a lot of them work through, the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. It's probably one of the biggest industry organizations in the world. They have dozens and dozens of journals, and a lot of our professors publish there. They have a platform they've built called the IEEE Collaboratech, and it's a social media platform where you can chat and speak to other people that are working in your area. So, it could be I'm on there under the ethics and engineering piece, because that's my focus. But it could be digital signal processing, it could be embedded systems, it could be anything like that. Certainly worth a look. Have a look at other industries as well, because essentially GitHub is the same as this for students looking at computer science. There's also plenty other things to think about out there besides GitHub. So things like LeetCode is another one that people are using more and more these days. And LeetCode is a good one for practicing your skills and finding out what standards are there. And one that keeps coming up these days as well, because employers are using it a lot in assessing people, is HackerRank. So I'm not sure if you folks have come across that, but HackerRank is a pretty popular site these days as well. I threw that link in the chat from the Zoom for you there, Andrew.
Yeah, and I'm just throwing it up on the screen share too, and I'm throwing it in our chat for our viewers. So yeah, if you're interested in that. So we've got the IEEE Collaboratech, we've got HackerRank, I was just on LeetCode. Yeah, and I've heard mixed things about these, but just because you've got an opinion about something doesn't necessarily mean that it's not valuable to you, right? So definitely
Exactly.
check these out.
Well, and this, brings up that conversation of, of PC versus Mac. I've heard so many students over the years saying, "Oh, I'm a Mac fan and PC is rubbish and this and that." We live in a world where you need both. If you're a Mac person, that's great. I use PC at work and I use Mac at home. Really not a big deal. I think the important thing to understand is that a lot of employers, particularly in your regular, industries, we're talking, your traditional industries like paper and pulp or mining or service industries or government agencies, most of them are using PCs, most of them are on Windows 10. So know that platform too. If you're more of a creative soul that is into design and drawing and painting and these sort of things, sure, the iOS, the Mac system is going to give you way more functionality. But even those, I have students come and visit me all the time that are working on their iMac and or on their MacBook or whatever, but then they go into the lab and they have to do some coding exercises. They're onto the PC in the lab and doing what they need to do. So again, be versatile, be able to deal with both of those. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, I guess.
Yeah, I think that speaks to kind of a piece that you said, like we've moved away from the specialist time period. We're into a generalist time period. So great, you know how to use a Mac, know how to use a PC, know how to use Linux, like know how to use all of these different things and build your skill set, because people don't just want, right? There used to be a time, I feel like engineering there maybe is a little bit still, because you could spend your whole career just working on back end, but even there you can be technical, but the new project management strategies require you to talk, require you to engage with people. So
absolutely. So a great example, Andrew, is computer engineers. 7, 8, maybe 10 years ago, computer engineering was all about hardware. Whereas now, it's a virtual network and a virtual server and a virtual firewall. So now all of a sudden, computer engineers are not just hardware guys, they have to be software and hardware guys. So, thinking about that diversification of your skills, don't put the blinkers on, don't be a one-horse show. Definitely worth diversifying and having the ability to do more than just that one. I mean, there's a lovely joke that the software engineers tell me here. It goes like this, Andrew. What's the difference between a software engineer and a programmer? And the answer is the Slurpee, because a programmer sits at a desk all day and programs with a Slurpee there and their flip-flops and their t-shirt, whereas a software engineer has to actually suit up, speak to the client, put up a wireframe, go back to the client, and back and forth consulting. So, if you're a real introvert and you don't want to deal with people and you want to be that programmer, there's nothing wrong with it. There's good money to be earned. You go for that and you do what you need to do for yourself. But if you want to climb the ladder, you want to have to be able to put a suit on when you need to, interact with people that are perhaps intimidating to you, or even people you don't like. You have to sometimes tolerate them and at least be pleasant enough to them that they want to spend their money with you. So certainly thinking about this comes back to that emotional intelligence, knowing yourself, knowing knowing what pisses you off and what doesn't piss you off, as well as, I think, understanding who you really are, your strengths, your weaknesses. I use the word authenticity. It goes a long, long way when someone is just being themselves and not putting on airs and graces and trying to be something that they're not. So definitely important to be authentic. But in order to be authentic, you need to know yourself. You need to know your strengths, your gaps, your triggers, what pisses you off, like I said, what pleases you, and also, what distracts you. I've had students be completely distracted by some shiny thing rather than dealing with the code. And next thing, they've got all sorts of bugs in that code, and it's going to take weeks to find those because they were distracted. So when you're doing something, do it. When you're dealing with people, put on your people face and deal with people.
Totally. And I gotta say, John, so I always at this point in the interview, because we've got just a couple minutes left, I always end up saying to the guests come on the show, I'm like, okay, so like here's your 30-second, like what's your most salient piece of advice? And I'm like, this entire interview is advice. So if you're just tuning into the stream and you're like, oh no, I've missed it, just watch the whole thing. Like set an hour aside for yourself, just grab a coffee, and just like sit back, relax, enjoy this, throw in some headphones. It's going to be worth it. But I think the one question that I will sort of throw out there, because I know you also are the most prepared guest that I've ever had, because not only did you like come up with some of these things, you have a list of sort of the top 6 tips for teens that are interested in heading into tech careers?
Yeah, so I mean, we've kind of woven some of them into the conversation, but let's do a bit of a recap. So, for young people in their teens heading into tech careers, I think, like I said to start, developing really good habits, developing your habits of curiosity and tenacity and hard work. But first of all, some of the ways you do that, getting that timely help, getting advice that you need, school counselors, university career educators like myself, we do see prospective students. Developing good studying and learning skills, knowing how to read something that you're not just plowing through things like a novel, you're reading the main points, so you're getting the data you need to do what you need to do. Those study skills will carry you for decades as well. Understanding what your options are. These are the 3 or 4 different areas that I might work in, that my knowledge, my experience, and my enthusiasm, because We talk about sustainability. If you don't like doing something, it's hard to keep doing it every day. So you've got to like it to some degree. The other was, of course, being active, not passive, and taking responsibility for your career, being confident but not arrogant, really important, and building that professional network in a strong, authentic, consistent way. There's nothing better than watching young people develop. So I have students. I sometimes connect with students. I recently connected with a student who graduated from UVic Engineering back in 2009. He's now living over in the UK and has done a whole bunch of more education, including a master's and a PhD since being here. But he circled back to connect with me to say, this is where I've got to. And that guy didn't have a clue he was going to go in that route. He had a sense of what he was interested in, and he authentically pursued that dream and that goal and found a way to go there. This fellow was doing physics and electrical engineering, working in an area called nanoplasmonics. So, something he hadn't even heard about when he was in his undergrad became basically the area that he specialized in. And now he's working over in the UK for a medical company, doing a lot of COVID solution work as well. So solving COVID problems, being authentic, doing your homework, asking for advice when it's necessary, and acting on it. Don't just sit and think about it. Do something. If you break something, learn how to fix it, right? If you do it and it's successful, go a step higher next time. But pushing ourselves, basically, and pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zone, of course.
These are awesome. These are, so again, if you caught nothing of the rest of this stream, that was like a super succinct way of getting that. But don't worry, because I am going to include all of those tips in the final video that we upload on YouTube. So if you are catching this here on Twitch and you're like, oh no, I missed it, I got it, I thought they were gonna go for hours, we definitely could, but we're gonna finish things up in just a minute, because John's got another thing where he's gonna be in the moderator seat, and there'll be another presenter talking about something very similar in a minute. But I want to say on behalf of John and I, thank you to all of our viewers who were here throughout the stream today. Thanks for the questions you submitted before and during the stream. This has been an amazing, amazing conversation. Like I said, John is a great friend and colleague, also has such a wealth of wisdom on this topic. So consider yourselves incredibly lucky to have been able to tap into this super resource for you. So John, before we kind of let our guests go, I want to give you the last word, but I also want to say thank you so much to you for joining me for Q&A Corner today. It's always a pleasure. I feel like every time we chat, I get a little bit more from the conversation, and so I'm super excited for being able to kind of return the favor in a couple weeks for one of these kind of sessions that you're doing as well.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Andrew. And yeah, I think, final piece of advice, like to the folks at high school out there, if they wanted to connect with me, you're going to give them my UVic email to be in touch. And I think, one of the key pieces is try it. If you think you want to do something, give it a go. Get out there and try it. There's nothing better than trying out something. I worked with so many computer scientists, computer engineers who bought themselves an old hard drive at the Sally Ann and pulled it to pieces and broke some things and put more RAM in and fiddled with it. Try it out, break some stuff, fix some stuff, and see what works. And where you need to learn, go and get the help. But keep on doing things that are interesting to you and engage with your life. Don't think life is just going to come to you. You got to go out there and grab a hold of it.
I love it. See to the very end. Amazing advice. So everybody, thank you again so much for being here, for checking out our live stream today. If you're interested in getting even more feedback, we are back here bright and early tomorrow at 11:30 with the CEO and art director for Creatables, a game development studio, an ed tech company based out of Toronto, who are going to be here to talk about what it's like building a gaming company in Canada. It has been such a pleasure, though, John, to get a chance to connect with you. I know you're going to be you're going to get an onslaught of emails from folks afterwards, but I'm so appreciative. Thank you for being here. Thanks to everybody else. Stay safe. stay healthy, be kind, and we'll see you next time here on Q&A Corner presented by High Tech U. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Andrew.